I'm very pleased to introduce this message from the Secretary of State at the Polish Ministry of Climate and Environment, delegates Krzysztof Bolesta.
Dear friends, good morning. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person, but important obligations are keeping me in Warsaw. But I was asked to provide you with a welcome speech, and this is what I'm going to do very briefly, not to keep you away too long. As you very well know, the Polish priorities, the Polish presidency priorities, we have three of them. Energy security, affordability, and Ukraine. These 3 points, in my opinion, present a power play, the very topic of your conference today. If they combine, then you will see that we can do great things going forward. When looking into challenges that we have today, we see that the conventional notion of energy security is not valid anymore. It has to be enlarged. We think about energy security as a thing including security of supply, but also the need of more coordination between member states and more interconnection. These priorities, these values are still very valid and very important, but we also have to consider other components of energy security. First thing is that we are now experiencing a physical threat to our critical infrastructure. And this is something that we are experiencing in Europe for the first time. 6 suspected sabotage attacks on 11 different pieces of energy infrastructure and telecoms is something that we've experienced over the last couple of months. Cybersecurity is another thing that we need to consider as a coordinated and very often state-sponsored attack on our infrastructure and part of energy security notion. Information or disinformation is another component of energy security that we've so far ignored. But as, again, state-sponsored effort to attack us with disinformation is stopping us from proposing certain pieces of legislation. And this is also something that we should try to prevent or address at least. And another, last but not least, component of energy security is to secure the value chains of our electricity sector. So not only power supply, but technology supply. We are depending more and more on imports of technology from abroad. And this is just plain wrong if we substitute imported fossil fuels with imported technology. We need to be mindful of that as well. Another of our priorities is competitiveness. In order to transform our energy sectors, in order to transform our economies, we need to have electricity at affordable prices. And we need to continue investment as well. So this is a very tricky proposition to increase investment and keep the prices at affordable level. But we absolutely must do that. If we don't, then the whole project of energy transformation will fail. So the real power play, if you will include increasing investment, increasing interconnection, continuing our electrification, but at the same time, keeping affordable prices and keeping competitiveness of our industries. We will propose this in our Council conclusions in a couple of weeks, but I hope you will also discuss these topics today and give us further food for our work in the Council. Thank you very much and have a very good conference.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Krzysztof Bolesta, thank you. So many things that he raises here are naturally things that we are talking about already, but that extra little bit there of actually thinking about the importing of technology and what the difference would be importing technology or importing energy when you're looking for energy security. So actually making sure that your whole supply chain is secure as well. There are so many different areas to pick through now. We thought we really needed somebody to give you that overview and that sort of understanding of all the different threats in all the different ways, coming from all the different areas. Because we are, as you know, living in a very evolving environment. So to discuss, quite simply, how to keep the lights on. Delegates, we are absolutely thrilled to welcome the Assistant Secretary-General for Innovation, Hybrid and Cyber at NATO, ladies and gentlemen, Jean-Charles Ellermann-Kingombe.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to be here today. It is no secret that the energy landscape is evolving, and evolving fast. But you already know that much better than I do. And the reason I'm here today is therefore because I want to talk to you about the link between energy and security, about energy infrastructure as a target, about energy as a critical enabler for our militaries, whose effectiveness depends on the availability of stable and reliable energy supplies. But there's more to that. I'm also here to build bridges between the energy and defense communities. For us, the Russian aggression in Ukraine has been a stark reminder about the need to learn from each other and work towards building lasting partnerships. We, as NATO and the defense community, have a good understanding of the threats posed by our adversaries. We know their plans and their capabilities, but it is the energy stakeholders who are best positioned to tell us about the consequences of these threats and the possible mitigation steps. My message today is simple. Together, we can accomplish more. But first, a few words on the threat picture. Despite the many virtues of electrification, this brave new world comes with new vulnerabilities. Renewable power generation systems, be it solar or wind, face an ever-growing threat of cyber attacks. Renewables increasingly rely on digital technologies which expand the cyber attack surface. Devices such as smart solar inverters, for example, are vulnerable to cyber sabotage. This is particularly concerning given Europe's growing reliance on solar energy. Wind energy is also not immune to these threats. Cyber attacks can target both the IT and the operational technology systems of wind farms, leading to potential harm. Digitally enabled energy infrastructure can also be affected by connectivity problems. Back in 2022, a cyber attack targeted a major satellite service provider. This satellite service outage disconnected modems to control thousands of wind turbines across Europe. However, it is not only cyber threats that energy companies should worry about. As many of you know, physical attacks against transmission infrastructure are also on the rise. In recent years, there's been no shortage of incidents involving critical undersea infrastructure, pipelines, or power cables, such as Eastlink 2. Whether intentional or not, it is a risk that needs to be addressed. As Europe embraces more intermittent power generation sources, energy storage infrastructure might also become a security flashpoint. By 2023, Europe is expected to have some 50 gigawatts of battery capacity, up from last year's 10. Coordinated cyber attacks against these grid-scale batteries could undermine not only power supply security, but even grid stability. Last month's blackout in Spain and Portugal serves as a grim reminder of what happens when grids go down. Finally, it is worth mentioning that most of these renewable technologies come from China. This raises questions not only about dependencies on a single supplier, but also vulnerabilities. As many of these technologies can be remotely accessed and controlled, it is critical to ensure that adequate security measures are in place. While NATO is not an energy institution, all these developments have far-reaching security implications for the allies. And while energy infrastructure protection is primarily a national responsibility, we are acutely aware that energy is a critical enabler of NATO's deterrence and defense. Therefore, in recent months, NATO has taken decisive steps to strengthen allied infrastructure from hybrid threats. In January, we announced the Baltic Sentry. It is an enhanced vigilance activity to improve allies' ability to respond to destabilizing maritime acts through the deployment of additional military assets. In February, we launched the Task Force X. This allows NATO to leverage innovative technology to detect, disrupt, and deter malign activities or threats in the vicinity of critical undersea infrastructure. In June alone, we'll be deploying a fleet of 70 drones in the Baltic Sea to that effect. Yet, this is not enough. As we move towards an increasingly electrified future, the industry also needs to step up and invest more in critical infrastructure security. Investment could include things like infrastructure hardening, redundancy, and resilient solutions, anti-drone equipment, or sensors. However, I'm not only here to ask, but also to offer. For its part, NATO is ready to work more with industry to strengthen our resilience. Future collaboration could cover at least 3 areas. First, information exchanges. These could include sharing the views on risks and suspicious activities. Second, training on security and contingency planning. This could cover issues such as critical infrastructure protection or maintenance of critical operations in time of crisis. Third, exercises. They could include live fire or tabletop exercises, which would focus on crisis or wartime scenarios. After all, as NATO's Secretary General has said, given Europe's current security situation, there is a clear need to shift to a wartime mindset. As we embrace new forms of energy, we'll need to balance the risks with the opportunities. This means getting more serious about infrastructure security and building better public-private partnerships. If we do exactly this, we'll be able to keep the lights on and ready ourselves for a resilient electric future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do stay with us. Jean-Charles, do stay with us. First of all, can I just go back to a couple of things that you said? The energy storage infrastructure, quite an interesting point. Do you feel that the industry is not paying enough attention to the security of the storage infrastructure? Is that sort of where you're coming from on that one?
I think in general, I'm not pointing fingers, neither the industry nor ourselves, or both of us. I think what we've come to realize in the last few years as a result of the war in Ukraine is a stark reminder that energy is very much a part of warfare. It's a prized goal, it's a prioritized goal, and we need to remind ourselves of what we're seeing in Ukraine, and that is that the first things our adversaries are doing is they're targeting our infrastructure to destabilize our societies and to provide military options for themselves. So we also need, when we talk about a wartime mindset, to think about our energy, to think about how we protect it. And I think here, we all come from many years where this has not featured prominently. And I think we all need to wake up. And so what I'm doing is I want to invite for a conversation about this, not to point fingers, but see how can we explore and identify what needs to be done. In a couple of weeks from now, leaders will meet in The Hague for a summit, which will be about sending a message about a strong NATO, a NATO that focuses on its core, a NATO that fundamentally builds its defense infrastructure. We will set ambitious targets on defense spending, but interestingly enough, we will also send targets about what we call defense-related investments, because we realize that energy, also storage, is hugely important for us, for our forces. How much that figure will be, we'll see in a few weeks. But wartime and warfaring relies on energy. So we have defense plans. Those defense plans include moving troops from one place to another. But in doing so, on that way, they'll rely on energy. Now, we need to keep that in mind as we develop those defense plans, as we make sure that we have the staff, the material. We also need to make sure that they can rely properly on energy. So I think that's why we are focusing on these issues, and right now we are having an exercise at NATO headquarters where we are going through our military plans and assessing them exactly up against the energy infrastructure to make sure that there is not a disconnect between our war plans and this whole set of enabling infrastructure so important for us.
I was going to say, because you need the energy to enable, and that has to be the bottom line. We've got time, if you're happy, to take a few questions from the audience. So we have microphones in the audience. If you would like to ask Jean-Charles a question, please raise your hand, and we can get a mic. There's a gentleman, Stefan, just the other side of you, down there. If you would like to raise your hand again, we've got there. Fabulous, thank you. If you would like to introduce yourself, thank you.
Yes, my name is Markus Fischer. I work for Ørsted, global renewables developer. Thank you very much indeed for your presentation. And you rightly mentioned many of the risks that are associated with the energy transition when we create the system from cyber to controllability. My question to you is, how do you see it from a systems perspective? The European Union imported 90% of its gas and 98% of its oil in the year 2022. I believe that is coming at a cost of, I think we heard it today, more than 400 billion. So my question is, do you see at NATO also that there's a systemic risk if you import more than 90% of your fuel? You need to transition away to domestic fuels. Is this systemic perspective moving from an import-based system to a domestic energy system? Is that part of your assessment within NATO?
Thank you.
I think we need to have an honest conversation about vulnerability also in our supply chains and also our energy supply chains. I mentioned one dependency in my introductory statements, and I think there is a real concern that we're moving from one dependency that was not healthy for us to another dependency that can be increasing or equally unhealthy. I think there's a risk. Let me give you another example. When we talk about energy and military capability, armed forces rely on liquid fuels. We've asked our armed forces, in the foreseeable future, how do you see your dependence on liquid fuels? And their assessment is fairly stable demand, maybe even increasing in a situation of conflict. At the same time, due to a green transition that we are strongly supporting, we're seeing that our refinery capacity is decreasing. So there are different figures, different estimates, but in 2050, some estimates are suggesting over 80% reduction in refinery capacity. So what do you do in that gap? One possibility could be, well, we'll create more synthetic fuels, liquid fuels. But that production is not really taken off in Europe. It's taken up in China. So it's another example of we're seeing some dependencies out there, and I think what we're saying is we need to be aware of the supply chain risks, also in the energy system, because that also potentially has an impact on our wartime or warfaring ability.
as you say, the supply chain, so the tech as well as the actual energy itself. It's a view that was echoed by Krzysztof Bolesta that we heard just a moment ago as well. Thank you for your question. We have a question at the back. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Jakub Groszkowski, PGE. Actually, you partly answered the question that I had. So it would be a kind of a follow-up question. So does it mean that there is a parallel transition going on, and electrification in rather civilian sector, and you as a military sector still need to depend on molecules? And does it mean that from your perspective, this electrification is rather creating a set of the targets in case of a military conflict? Like if we invest in offshore wind, we are creating targets for the opposite military, or how should we look at it? Thank you.
So, sorry, are we creating new targets?
From the military perspective.
Because of the infrastructure change?
I think the short answer is yes. I had an interesting conversation some time ago with a representative from an offshore company, because we have this conversation, as I also alluded to in my introduction, that we need closer collaboration, exchange of information between us, the military branch, and you, the energy sectors. Not least because you sit on a host of data, and that data is important also for us to understand what's happening, and also at the end of the day to protect and prevent things from happening. And that representative said, well, we're not too keen on sharing data with you, because if we do so, we become a target. Now, my answer is that has nothing to do with you becoming a target. You become target the moment where the energy source that you supply becomes critical to our societies. Because everything that is critical to our societies is worth destabilizing. And that's why our adversaries target energy as one of the first targets in the conflict. So yes, creating new green energy will create new targets. That doesn't mean we shouldn't create more green energy. It just means that from the outset, we need to think about how do we also protect this. That could be protecting it in the cyberspace, it could be protecting it in the physical space, but we need to have this security layer as we develop the infrastructure. I had another discussion with another company that is, and the discussion was about undersea cables. And they had the discussion with some of their customers. I mean, do we pay that extra little premium for a cable that can provide us with sensors and others so that we can better protect, or do we save that money because we also have the bottom line in our budgets to look at, and we're not here to speak on your behalf. I mean, you're responsible to your stakeholders and to your shareholders very often. But we're saying that there is a security dimension that we all need at least to reflect on, and that comes back to this wartime mindset. A wartime mindset has not only to do with military forces, it has to do also with all the other enabling infrastructure and with all the elements that make us resilient as a society.
Just picking up on that, you mentioned in your keynote 70 drones in the Baltic Sea, and you actually said, I believe, that won't be enough. What is needed if you are going to protect that infrastructure?
I think it'll be difficult to issue any guarantees that we can prevent anything from ever happening. But with this drone fleet and drawing on new tech capabilities, the idea is to say, well, there's actually quite a lot we can do to kind of narrow the window in which either incidents or intentional damage can be done to our infrastructure. And if you cannot completely close that window, at least we can also shorten the reaction time after the incident has happened. And that's also important, because again, energy means the stability of our societies. So the idea is, today with new tech, new space tech, there are so many readily available solutions provided from the civil sector that we can bring in security to do just this. I think there is an interesting conversation to be had. What is the cost of providing or leasing a drone fleet compared to what it costs us to have physical frigates assets in the water? And I think I would argue that we will discover in the coming months and years that those new tech solutions provide both capabilities at speed and probably also at a substantially lower cost than classical capabilities. So I think there's a lot of conversation, but completely prevent attacks or incidents on infrastructure is probably not possible to guarantee, after all.
Probably not possible, but it is being alive to the different possibilities and what can be done. Jean-Charles, thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon. Jean-Charles Ellermann-Kingombe, thank you very much. Thank you. So what we're going to do now is discuss that in a lot more detail and get people on stage who are currently within that area and living within those constraints and those challenges. So let me introduce, first of all, Member of the European Parliament, Thomas Pellerin-Carlin. We have the Chief Strategy Officer of the PPC Group, Elena Giannakopoulou. We have the Chief Revenue Officer at Siemens Grid Software, Fergal Burke. The Executive Vice President, Compass Lexicon Paris, and also Head of the European Energy Practice, Fabienne Roques, and PKE Director, Pavel Robel. Come and join us on stage. Thank you. Hello, good to see you. Great to see you, thank you very much. We've got a stall for each of you. Hi there. Come and take a seat, Eleanor. Lovely to see you, good to see you. Yeah, wherever you feel, wherever you fancy, there's enough seats, please do. When it comes to security of supply of enough stools and chairs on stage is always a big issue. Before we get into the conversation, let me run along the line. What did you just think to what you have heard? What was going through your mind when you were listening to Jean-Charles?
I think the first thing that came to my mind is the dronification of warfare and what it means for energy. The first thing is, there is actually, it's a weird way to put it, it's the first time I'm saying it publicly, but here it goes. There is an electrification of warfare that is happening. When you move away from battle tanks and truck-driven artillery and classic piloted airplanes to drones, you're moving from an oil-based way of warfare to an electricity-based way of warfare. That is one of the changes that goes with the dronification of warfare. The second thing, which has been underestimated so far, is the impact, especially in the naval dimension. We tend to underestimate the capacity of the Russian military to learn and to scale what they learn big time. I don't know how long it takes, I'm not a naval military expert, but we could be living in a world where the Russian Navy, with drones, could threaten oil supply to Europe in a way that could be a hybrid way, using mercenary groups, non-state actors, giving them enough money for them to acquire this, which could be one of the bottlenecks to ensure oil supply to Europe, because as one gentleman said, we import 98% of the oil in Europe, and virtually all of that is coming from ships that are very easy targets for naval drones by non-state actors coming up like the Houthis in Yemen, but also possibly by a state-supported actor, especially by a Russian-supported actor.
Your thoughts immediately went to actually what you called the electrification of war, but actually you went on a very physical security as your priority. When you were listening to Jean-Charles, what was going through your mind? Who wants to? Well, no, please, yeah. Let me run along the line.
I have a mic, thanks. Everyone's a target.
Everyone yeah.
in the sector, in the industry, is a target. There's no getting away from that. I think he also said that you can't think about your bottom line when it comes to security. It has to be the number one thing. And yeah, I firmly believe that. So everyone, and then he mentioned at the start, together now, we can, so everyone needs to be sharing information, people need to be collaborating more. So those were the key takeaways for me.
Whoever next, don't worry, no particular order then.
I would echo what the fellow panelists said, and also that this world is extremely complex and complicated. So we are talking about physical infrastructure, we are talking about the trust that we have in our partnerships and in our peers. So this world is much more complex and we need to build it, making a fine line between how we are close enough, but how we also protect both the consumers and the infrastructure from all the vulnerabilities that lie ahead.
Fabien?
Maybe one point. The security of supply issue in the electricity sector, I think, is taking a new dimension with electrification. Why is that? Because the boundaries of the power sector are being expanded. And what that means is that we need to look at it from a holistic, from a system point of view, including these stretched boundaries.
I have to say that what comes to my mind when I hear the discussion from the beginning of today's conference, if we as a sector, we are in favor of massive electrification, then we really need to massively think about security of electricity supply. And the threats are real, what we just heard.
Yeah. Would you say a word to describe it is very sobering? Yeah. Or, yeah, go.
Well, I mean, it means that we need to take seriously physical threats, cybersecurity, market design also, to have enough incentives for private investors to incentivize them to invest in infrastructure which is in line with our electricity energy security reality. This is also dependency, the issue of independency on third countries. However, there has been a question about dependency on some fossil fuels. There are third countries and third countries, yes. Let's not equalize our relation with UK or Norway and with Russia and Belarus. That's important.
Your first thing that you said, it's got to be taken seriously, which, I mean, it sounds like a very obvious point, but I wonder whether it comes from the feeling of it isn't being taken seriously enough, and it hasn't historically been taken seriously enough. Quick question to the audience. Let's do this in a couple of different ways. First of all, raise your hands for me if you think security of supply, and we're talking about all the things that Jean-Charles was talking about, if you think that security of supply is always front and center at your top level, whatever company you're in. So within the C-suite, it's always front and center. Always. Okay. That was a very strong hand, sir. That was a yes. I'm just wondering whether you're a CEO and you feel that you need to, yeah, there's a nod. Raise your hands for me if you feel that within the last 5-6 years, it has finally been given the weight that it deserves. So raise your hands if you think security of supply within the last 5 years has had increased attention. Okay, yeah. And raise your hands for me if you think all the things that Jean-Charles was talking about are just still not being taken seriously enough. I was wondering, I was keeping an eye. All right, Eleanor, why not?
Say no.
Oh, I thought that was a hand.
No. I didn't.
Let's
get the record straight. No, I said yes.
I saw a hand here.
Yeah, I mean, my view is that we're getting there, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
Just an example of that, it's just a proxy. Can you guess when the Commission published its latest energy security strategy? It's 2014. A lot has happened since then. I'm glad the Commission is working on let's say, a significant update. In the European Parliament, we're working on an energy security report that aims to feed into that process. And what I hear from the current negotiations that we have is the quality of the debate, at least in this new European Parliament, has been a great leap backward. We even have to struggle to say that energy efficiency in buildings is part of energy security, while in the 2014 European Commission document, there was an entire chapter on moderating energy demand. And so we see that the over-polarization of, let's say, Green Deal policies also have an impact on the energy security discussion, because we are struggling currently to recognize renewables and energy efficiency as contributing to energy security because of some ideological position from a part of the political spectrum.
Elena, I think there was a look on your face and I couldn't quite work out what it was when you were listening to that. Is that an agreement or?
I partially agree, I would say, in the sense that I agree the definition has changed a lot, and actually at Eurelectric we issued a report on security of supply as utilities. We are responsible for delivering and operating critical infrastructure, so as you can imagine, security of supply is part of our mission. So I agree that, of course, we need an updated document, but at the same time, there are a lot of assessments and there are a lot of processes in place at the European level as well that they give us good indications of where certain gaps and dependency and red flags are. That's why I said that we are halfway there. Of course, in a world that the security of supplies definition is changing because of, do you want to say?
No, go on.
Okay. Go on. Because of everything that is happening, because of decentralization, digitalization that are changing our operating rules, because of climate change and all this geopolitical tension that we have all experienced. Of course, this definition is changing and we need to look into this, but we are not starting from scratch. Definitely not.
Okay, that's an excellent point. Our definition of energy security is changing. Let's find out what we should be talking about and what you feel that definition of energy security is. Can we launch the Slido question, please? If you wouldn't mind getting out your phones for me. And let's give you a QR code and ask you when you think, there we go, it's that one. Can you see it all right over the heads? Yes, I think so. Fabian, Fergal, just duck a little bit. There we go.
Get my big head out of the way.
Very good. I won't get you to vote, don't worry. So what we're asking is, when you think about energy security, what is the first and most pressing concern that comes to your mind? So I'm just going to give it a little bit of time to vote, to sort of think of some of the things that come to your mind. So whether it is physical threats, whether it's cybersecurity risks, whether it's access to critical raw materials, we've not talked about that one yet at all. Extreme weather events. Ellen, it would be good to get your views on extreme weather events, definitely. Dependency on third countries for energy transition, or just ensuring an uninterrupted electricity supply. So when you think about energy security, what is the first and most pressing concern that comes to your mind? Let's not show the answers yet. What would it be? Which one?
Physical threats.
Physical?
I think point F is still relevant, keeping the lights on.
Keeping the lights on, you go for F, the ensuring uninterrupted electricity supply.
I would go for cybersecurity risks.
Understandably, yeah, absolutely.
F as well for me.
Okay, an uninterrupted electricity supply? No.
just one. But if I need, I would choose F, ensuring uninterrupted electricity supply.
Okay. So no one said extreme weather events. Oh, you did. Sorry, you did.
I think it's part, to some extent, of F, in the sense that to keep the lights on, you need to plan for the extreme weather events, and we have methodologies to do that.
Yeah. Should we see the answers? Okay, let's see what we went for. Oh, yeah, it was the uninterrupted supply at 40%. Access to raw materials didn't really figure. I wonder whether that's just an awareness. So we've got dependency on third countries for the energy transition. It's at 19. Cybersecurity, there you go, 16. Does that disappoint you?
No, I mean, look, there's no wrong answer here, right? I mean, there's no real right answer. Yeah, it doesn't really surprise me, but.
Okay, and physical 9%. Does that surprise you?
Not really. I think we underestimate the risk of Russia using military assets against us, and so therefore it's consistent with a lack of analysis on physical threats. We have not so far seen non-state actors using drones in a way that is a mass-scale attack on the grid. It's unlikely that attacking the energy grid will be the main threat, the main target for non-state actors. But clearly for Russia, like if there is one country that has one leader that understands the importance of energy, it's clearly Vladimir Putin. And we see what happens in Ukraine. He did not attack the electricity grid in Ukraine with physical means until April 2022, until it became clear that it was a long, protracted war, and then became the main target. Attacking first specific nodes of the grid, like electricity substations, and then attacking thermal power plants, fossil power plants, hopefully not nuclear yet. So yeah, I'm putting myself, also as a former military and a politician, we need to plan for war. It's unlikely that we'll come to my country, France, first. But clearly, if you're Finland, if you're Romania, if you're Estonia, you're clearly on the kill list of Vladimir Putin. And if he were to use military force against us, he will definitely target the electricity grid. And we need to plan for that. We need to have the manpower, we need to have the components of the grid to be able to rebuild. And maybe the reason why I don't think keeping the light on should be the first and most pressing concern is like, it's something we know how to do. And like the electricity let's say, ecosystem in Europe has been very good at doing it despite what happened in Iberia a couple of weeks ago. And the system has been extremely resilient. Like in Texas, in the US, 4 or 5 years ago, they spent like 7 days without electricity. When was the last time that we had 7 days without electricity in a significant part of the European continent? It's actually a real question. I don't know the answer. Did it happen? Ever? So to me, it's not the first and most pressing concern, just because it's something that is not, sorry, I've got the word in French, dimensional, like it's not a threat that would disrupt the entire economy. It's not something that could put us in a very, very dark path, while, let's say, Ukrainian-style, drones with trucks, like the thing that happened. This is something that Russia can pull that off, meaning that they could theoretically destroy all the electricity substations in an hour in a given country. Like, can we recover from that? I don't know. That's the threat. Anyone wants to pick up on that? Elena, please do, yeah.
Yes, I would like to, because I think that there is a lot of color that you can add depending from where you are coming from, because Europe, it's not the same system. We don't all experience the same climate conditions. So while you're right, it has been thankfully quite a while since we experienced 7 days without electricity. We have experienced 2 days and 3 days without electricity, and I don't know how willing we are here, since we are used to a world where 24/7 we can turn on the light bulb and everything is okay. And this is the impact that climate change has in our systems. And I'm coming from Greece. Greece is hot, of course, but it's getting hotter and hotter. And over the last couple of years, 3 years, it's not just Greece, it's the whole Southeast European region. It's getting hotter and hotter, and we have more droughts. And we can see the impact on our system that is extremely stressed. And during winter, we have very heavy snowfalls. So what I'm saying is that we have spent a lot of time thinking about climate mitigation, but we are at this point now that for some countries, more than others across Europe, we need to move to climate adaptation because the extremes are here and they are not extremes. And this is a significant feature of the new definition of security of supply. And we can't go back in our living standards, thankfully and hopefully. So this is definitely, I think, something that we need to keep in mind as we are designing our new systems.
I'm going to ask you for a specific example of actually how PPC is adapting and what you are doing and what you are planning. But what I'm going to say is, can we just have another QR code for me? Thank you. Because what I'd like to do is just launch another word cloud, and we will come back to it at the end. And I'm going to ask you, I think that QR code is working for that one. Fabulous. I'm going to ask you about future-proofing systems. So what would you like to see in the future? Looking ahead, what would you like to see in the energy security architecture of the future? Just while you're listening to our panelists, just put a few notes down, and we will sort of get your views at the end of this. But let's just go back to extreme weather and Greece, as you say, yes, heat, but it's not just hot summers at all. So how are you adapting? What are you seeing? What are you doing? How are you trying to future-proof yourselves?
It's extremes during winter, during summer, and we need all this puts, as I said, it stressed the system, and of course it has an impact on power prices. Power prices are spiking with everything that this means to the affordability, in addition to the security of the system. So we have developed 3 axes in our strategy. The first one has to do with infrastructure, investing in grid infrastructure, moving lines underground in order to protect them, especially in areas where you have the majority of the population. The second has to do with diversifying our generation portfolio. The region, Greece and the region used to have a significant contribution of hydro resources. With the drought, this means that we have seen hydro generation going down, so diversifying using cost-competitive technologies, solar, wind, batteries, help us a lot manage this new modus operandi of the system. And of course, we don't diversify only across technologies, but we also move across regions. So what we have in Europe is strong wind in the north, and we have solar in the south. And we have interconnections that can move electrons around. We can argue if these are enough or not, but we do have. So at PPC, we have invested in Romania in order to leverage what hydro resources what wind resources can offer. And of course, we have significant investments in solar power. And then the third one is we are trying to activate demand-side flexibility. I think that until the recent energy crisis, we were all a bit unsure about how elastic demand can be. Increasingly, we see that when we have the right incentives in place, you can actually unlock quite a significant amount. So we can try leverage this as well. And of course, building our strategy in terms of operations, because these events are happening now more often than not.
Yeah. So it is that resilience coming in, but also the flexibility as well. So let's move from Greece onto Poland as well, and sort of look and see what is changing there, how you're adapting, the sort of things that you are having to, very, very different environment, different climate, but what are you having to put in to adapt?
Well, the thing is that Europe and Poland of 2014, when the latest definition of a strategy of energy security is not an issue anymore. So the world we live in is much more complex, and the energy transition which we are implementing in Poland as well. So I would like to focus more on Poland and the other countries which are more exposed on physical threats and risks, as there are countries and regions which are on the external eastern border of the EU, not only countries, also Baltic Sea, with massive investments in offshore wind infrastructure. And this is something we are focusing on while implementing our investments. We are in position as a Polish sector as the one which took energy security always as the top of its priorities. So it's for us, it's nothing new that we need to focus on those elements. And this is not something what surprises us, that the complexity of the issues of energy security, electricity of supply is now something we have to focus on, and challenges which are ahead of us. We are very much in favor in the discussion about the priorities in Poland and in Brussels of keeping this higher, those issues higher on the list of top priorities, and not only because we are in favor of changing the definition, but definition is always good to have. However, we need real action plan. We need incentives for investments. We need to develop dual-use technologies. We need to take the risk seriously, and this is what we are doing in Poland, not only during the last few years, but for decades.
So this is an approach you're saying that you have always taken, but presumably everything that you're saying when it comes to PKE, that actually what you're doing is you're putting it even more front and center than it possibly would have been.
The thing is that security of supply, electricity security, is not only about the comfort of our consumers. This is also the matter of competitiveness of our regions and countries. Because if we want to attract investors to come to our regions, to our countries, we need to secure stable and affordable electricity. It cannot be just communicated politically. It needs to be taken for granted by them.
You have to show, yeah, absolutely, and it has to be.
This is a matter of credibility also of the power sector and the national governments and the EU as well.
That's a great word, yeah. It's not just stability, it's credibility in the stability as well. There's a lot of physical threats that we've talked about. Can we throw in the cyber question to that now, because that is right the way across the board. So what keeps you awake at night, Fergal?
Lots of things. If anyone knows me, I'm pretty paranoid. But cybersecurity is one of them. I mean, I think the analogy with cybersecurity when it comes to a technology company is like a Michelin star chef and food poisoning, right? I mean, you know, if it happens, you lose your star. Look, cybersecurity is clear and present. I mean, what's the first thing that came into your head after the blackout in Spain and Portugal? You know? Even my mother texts me to say, is this a cybersecurity attack? It must be. Thankfully, it wasn't. So, look, there's a couple of things that I think we as an industry and maybe what John Charles was alluding to earlier on. First is collaboration. Sharing intelligence among the community, both it being technology companies and grid operators at the transmission level, at the distribution level, just to share that intelligence. It's always there. I mean, cybersecurity is creepy. It's like water in a dam. If there's one little crack, fissure, that water's coming through. It's the same for cybersecurity. Then also participate in cybersecurity games. I mean, NATO actually has a pretty robust cybersecurity game. And then the paranoia comes in as a technology provider. So, you know, for us, cybersecurity is one of the core fundamentals in developing any software, any technology. It has to be from the get-go. And then from there, you are constantly testing, monitoring, and patching. I guess if there's one thing that I would leave, it is the need for more standardization and the need for more collaboration between the technology, the technologists, and the community. We need standardization. If you're isolated, if you're custom, if you're bespoke, if you're out on your own, it's very difficult to be able to patch a cybersecurity attack at scale. So that would be, those would be just a couple of the key messages.
Fergal, can I ask you something slightly sort of adjacent to that, and that is that technology is only as good as those who are then using the technology. And the reason I say that is because if anyone is aware of the very large British retailer Marks and Spencer's at the moment, who are currently still undergoing a huge cyber attack that's taken their entire online ordering system offline. And it appears, although it's still being investigated, that the organization that hacked them took about a year to get to know middle management people and work their way in that way. So it's great having the technology, but how do we ensure that we've covered every gap in the people using it as well?
Well, it comes back to your slide earlier on. That's why it would be number one for me. But it all depends on where you're coming from, I guess, or what role you have to play in a company. Technology is one thing. Deploying it's a second thing, and then ongoing persistent training. I mean, it's rigorous training and monitoring of the systems. I mean, I can't stress that enough. I mean, you know, it's easy to develop software. It's even easy to you know, to market it. But the success lies in the training of the people and the deployment of it. So, for me, it comes down to training and how rigorous that the company believes in that technology and in cybersecurity itself, right?
Yeah. But Fabian, you look at things in a more advisory sense. You look right across the board, and you know it's really difficult sometimes to try and pin down what the security priorities are because there are so many of them, and they are evolving and changing all the time. So, in your capacity as being able to look at that wider context and look at lots of different examples, are we far enough ahead in judging the sort of things we need to be looking at? I'm not saying are we secure enough, but do we have enough information to know what we should be looking at?
So that's a great question, and we actually worked on this question with Eurelectric in the recent study, Keeping the Lights On. And our conclusion, following on what Elena said, is we have a number of things in place already, but the context is evolving, as you said, and we need probably to address a number of gaps. Let me spell this out for you. There are three main areas where we need to do our homework. The first one is planning. I think that's where you are getting at. We need to get better at planning our needs in advance of the emergency happening. What that means is we need to coordinate the different planning methods we have. Just to name a few, we have a 10-year network plan for the network part. We have generation resource adequacy studies for the generation part. But we don't have an overriding planning framework that cuts across the value chain. Nor do we have a framework that stretches beyond 2030, 2040, looks at the longer term. So we need to get better at planning. That's the first thing. The second thing is we need an insurance policy in the sense that we need tools to deliver the capacity and the infrastructures. What that means is specific tools. So in the market design, for instance, it means capacity mechanisms. It means also ensuring that we reward flexibility and we contract flexible resources. So we've identified a number of concrete things we need to do. So that's the second thing. as Elena mentioned, there is a third thing, in real time. You need to be able to react in the power system and run it. How do you do that in a system that's a lot more decentralized? Well, there's only one answer here. You need to coordinate better. We've heard it. You need price signals to do that. So we need better markets in real time to send signals to everybody. And we need to build in redundancy. So that's the way we frame it along these 3 steps in the study.
So we need politicians to play their role as well, because that all can't be done without politicians there as well, obviously. European Parliament has one of its own initiative reports going on, which is a way of the Parliament signalling their own priorities, really. It's one of your originated ones. So, yes, it's a priority, but what do you see coming out of that report that actually you can tell this audience will be either changing or helping, advising? What will it be?
It's still largely a work in progress. To be honest with the audience, the over-politicization of everything is slowing down the negotiation process, but we continue and we'll get there. To me, one thing that report will bring is a clear European Parliament's position on the Commission's proposal on phasing out Russian energy that was proposed on May the 6th. And so far, a lot of the discussion has been very electricity-centric and very defensive, like how we can protect the electricity system, and that is good, like share all the points that were made. I just want, since we're coming to a close, to have maybe a more open conversation about what can the electricity system do for the energy system. And here again, I'm coming back to the basics. We Europeans import 90% of the gas we consume. We import 98% of the oil we consume. Depending on how you count nuclear, we import half or less of our energy. But clearly, we don't import wind, we don't import solar. It seems to be a bit basic when I'm explaining it like that, but I think politically we have not realized this yet, that electrification is energy security. It's not enough to be energy secure, but it is a critical component. I want also to bring the debate to a more geopolitical question. I served some time in the French military, and one thing you get taught as a French army officer is that you need to tell your soldiers what is the theory of victory. What is Europe's theory of victory in the war that Vladimir Putin launched against European democracies? What is it? I don't see it. So the one that I would propose is quite simple. If you want to elaborate a theory of victory, you need either to change the will of your opponent or the means that he has. For Putin, it's more likely that we change the means than the will of Putin. How can we change the means? Then we just analyze what is the main resource that he's using. It's clearly not human life. The Russian regime does not care about the life of Russian soldiers. We see that in the military tactics that they are doing. But Russia remains an economic dwarf. If you look at the Russian military budget of Russia at full-scale war last year, the Russian military budget is 140 billion euros. The Russian fossil fuel revenues last year were 250. Once we understand this, then we have a clear theory of victory. If we reduce by some extent the capacity of the Russian system to transform Russian oil and gas into money, then we have a clear theory of victory. It will take time, but this war started more than a decade ago. Like the first invasion was in 2014, and if you count Georgia, that's 2008. And to me, if I can put it like that, the energy transition is our theory of victory. In the short term, it means that we need to stop importing Russian energy. Currently, the European Union continues to fund Putin's war. We are feeding the bear by around 2 billion euros per month. That is obviously the very first thing we need to do, and frankly speaking, we should have done that in 2014 with the annexation of Crimea, but better late than never. And then we need to deploy all the things that reduce the Russian capacity to transform oil and gas into money. Those are obviously wind power, heat pumps, battery electric cars and trucks and buses, you name it. And we need to do that globally. And to me, that's what I hope we can get there. We're not there yet, but if we are true patriots, if we really believe that what is at stake now is the future of European civilization in the 21st century, and I think that is what is at stake, we need to get our energy policy in order, and we need to bring this together with other countries in the world, India, Japan, Korea, to name other big importers of Russian energy. And if we do that, it will take years, but in the end, eventually we will win. And we will have a clear theory of victory to preserve European democracy in the 21st century. And by the way, as a side effect, we'd have largely solved climate change.
My goodness me, Thomas. Talk about wrapping everything up there. Just before I let you go, let's have a quick look at the word cloud that we put together. I asked you to vote on, not vote on Slido, sorry, put words into Slido to see what you wanted to see in the energy security architecture of the future. Can we put it on the big screen? I know it's there, but we're just going to show it for you so you can see. Lovely, thank you. Can you see? Yeah? Flexibility, nuclear. So this is all about what you'd like to see in the energy security architecture of the future.
No, more French nuclear.
Which one?
No, sorry, just like there's nuclear, and then there's the one that wrote more French nuclear, which I think is a very French way of looking at the European energy debate.
You're going to find that person, aren't you? And God, have a conversation with them. It's a really interesting bunch of different thoughts there. I like that one Europe there, sustainability, interconnections, but right there in the beginning, in the middle rather, flexibility, capacity mechanisms, and yes, nuclear as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's been a really interesting discussion, a very varied, very complex discussion, but please thank our panelists on stage here. Thank you so much.